We're heading into an election year. Everybody's all riled up on every issue. There isn't an issue in a workplace that isn't kind of heightened right now, and it's going to only get worse in 2020. Same time, the scrutiny that are coming from local regulations and even government regulations are going to be more intense in 2020. Just listened even to the folks looking to become president of this country. There's a lot, it's on the agenda of a lot of people's minds. And you've got a generation coming into the workplace that expects a higher level of transparency than ever before in the history of workplaces. So we've got a bunch of things intersecting at once, and so I hope we take the discussion today forward so you guys can do something about it. But again, paying people fairly is a great idea. Well, I can tell you right now, it's very well known whether or not you pay fairly amongst your employees. They're talking about it, they're releasing tweets about it, it's already out there. So you're late to the game if you're not talking about it. So go ahead and talk about it. If there's an issue, you'll just deal with it and we can solve it. All these issues have good solutions around pay equity. But I'd like you to think about the notion in your organization or your clients' organizations, the unwritten rules. Because your issues probably lie somewhere in the unwritten rules. How do you get promoted? How do you get feedback? How do you access the C-suite? How are decisions really made? And oftentimes, being able to navigate that stuff is really where I find the most issues. Because it's not in the policies, it's not in the values on the wall, which are sometimes contradictory. It's the unwritten stuff that happens. So I like you to think about that and help people navigate the systems better. And then your other to-do around pay equity is pretty simple. Just pull the averages from groups. You probably have job levels, anywhere from 4 levels, maybe up to 15 if you're a big organization. Pull the job average, the pay averages for the year. Pull them. Then do it by role. Pull the averages out. You will be able to start seeing patterns just from the averages of your pay if you've got issues or not. Then we can get into the fun parts of looking at women, pulling it out, people of color. If you have anybody identifying gay, lesbians, single parents are always fun to look at. There are groups you can just look at the averages, which will tell you at a very high level probably whether or not you have issues to go a lot deeper and how soon you should go a lot deeper to fix them.
How do you begin to look out 5 years to develop a very gender-balanced, most competitive workforce over the next 5 to 10 years? And that's where our analytics began to come into play. One of the big issues was we all know that if you're looking at historical data around representation, that's looking backwards. There's a secondary labor market that goes on around the world that's enhanced by migratory patterns of talent around the world. We would look at research papers and how the scientists are moving around the world. We would look at monster.com. We would look at all of the legal abstracts that are out there and came up with a highly sophisticated approach toward using analytics, using artificial intelligence, and also using predictive and prescriptive analytics to determine where's the talent going to be. Interestingly enough, one of the results was that we need to begin looking in the Middle East for women with MD PhDs.
If you don't have millions of dollars to spend on this stuff, start taking a look at how many women are in your executive team, how many women are on your board. What does that look like next year? Are you willing to say, look, by next year I want 15% representation for people that are X, Y, and Z? Are you willing to do those things? Because those are really important aspects of this that will help. A lot of us believe, at least at WorldatWork, that part of why pay equity still exists, and by the way, we've had the first pay equity complaint, we found one in 1869. Okay, 1869, this has been on people's minds, and it was in the New York press here, pretty much asking why do two people doing the exact same job get to be differentiated in pay based on gender? So we've been at this thing a really long time trying to solve for it, and it's going to take another 208 years if we don't kind of get it together. So just begin looking at where you're willing to put the stake in the ground relative to, is anybody in your organization willing to claim, look, we need people who look different to be on this board, in this C-suite, by 2021 or whatever. We see movement when those things happen.
When you're faced with the data that 80% of all medical decisions are made by women in the household, now being Latino, Hispanic, I got to tell you, it's 120%.
That's right.
It's not 80%. I just got to tell you, even my aunts get involved in all the medical decisions. All right, I just got to tell you, I just pay the bill. So it's important because if we're not competitive in having that perspective at the table when large decisions are being made, we won't be able to serve our patients well. And so for us, there is such a compelling burning platform to move quickly And you're right, it starts with small steps. I absolutely agree with you. Sometimes I always am concerned, as you know, the marketplace can pass you by faster than you have the ability to respond, and then what? You're out of business.
I mean, there are three areas to mention actually that we see in our analytics again. One is job design, because sometimes the job design really doesn't help to bring more women into that job. Mobility and commuting. So those elements, because they relocate less, for example, which again might impact their promotability, or they leave because of commuting more versus men. So when you look at those reasons, okay, how structurally can we resolve?